Thank you for joining us today. We have a pretty packed agenda that we're excited to share. Just a quick look at the rules, just asking everyone to be respectful as people present and raise your hand if you have a question or would like to speak. So I have a couple of our colleagues here with us today from DPD. We'll start with the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund presentation with Sophia Carey. And then after that, we'll go into the Small Business Improvement Fund program. So we thought it would be really important to provide an overview of these two really great business development programs that serve our businesses in the Invest Southwest corridors and beyond. Then we'll go into the RFP next steps, followed by a brief discussion of our current roundtable format, meeting format and time. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with Miss Sophia.
Thanks, Sonia. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join you guys today. I just wanted to give a quick kind of refresher / summary of what's going on with the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund today. So Sonia, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. Many of you may already know that we opened our current round for applications last Monday. So what that means is we're accepting applications and project proposals from now until April 9th for the first round of applicants for 2021. The anticipated decision for this round is probably going to be around June, end of June possibly. And then there is expected another round in the third quarter of this year. So if there's anyone who feels like they're not quite there yet or not going to get their application submitted by April 9th, no worries, we do have another round. But for anyone who is interested, or if you know anyone who's interested, please let them know that we are currently accepting applications. Next slide, please. So quick reminder, the small grant program allows us to provide entrepreneurs up to $250,000 for a neighborhood development project. In addition to that financial grant, we do have a technical assistance program to help build the applicant's capacity where they need it. So they're not required to use it, but if they feel like they need, additional support, either in finalizing their funding, getting that last dollar secured, or if it's design work, maybe they know what they need to do and they just want to think about how they can do it in a more community engaging manner, or something that's going to be more attractive to the residents. We've got design TAs, and then we've got construction management TAs. So those are folks who, maybe they've got all the designs fleshed out, and they just would like to have some additional support in supervising their GC and making sure that that project happens on time and on budget, as I like to say. So definitely we've got the TA program. And just as a reminder, the goal of the NOF program is, we look at it from three kind of different perspectives. One is to really support our local entrepreneurs and small businesses. So these are the businesses that are already currently operating and invested into the neighborhoods. We also are looking to attract those from other places, whether that's other places in the city or other places outside of the city, possibly in the collar suburbs. Anyone who's interested in coming into the neighborhood to provide increased services, cultural amenities, so it's attracting from into the neighborhoods. And then finally, we look at it as a resource to support ongoing economic development, for example, Invest Southwest and some of the other initiatives that the city has. Next slide. Okay. For the small grants program, you do need to be, the applicant has to have their project located on an eligible corridor. There's 3 levels of eligibility. There's just generally eligible. Then there's a step up from that, which is priority. And then the highest level would be Invest Southwest. So we've got this cool interactive map on our website where someone can type in an address and it'll drop a pin on the map and tell them if they meet any of these criteria. And if so, kind of give them the option to start an application. For anyone who's a community organization on this call, if you are interested in getting a static map of where these corridors are within, kind of within a certain boundary, please feel free to let me know, and I can work with our GIS to get that map created. The interactive map is great when you're working, with the city as large as Chicago, but if you are more focused on a certain area and you want to see a static map or a map that you can hand out, we can do that as well. Next slide. In terms of eligibility, we're looking for commercial property owners who have a defined use. So this isn't for speculative or flipping of commercial property. You do need to know what amenity or service is being provided to the residents of the neighborhood. Tenants, of course, so you don't actually have to own the property. You can have a lease, and as long as you have the authorization of the property owner to do the work, you're more than welcome to apply. Nonprofits are also able to apply as long as they have some sort of revenue generating activity. So what we mean by that is it has to be a nonprofit that is operating in a way where they're not just relying on grants or government funding to provide their service. So it has to have some sort of revenue generating portion. And then for anyone, so the eligible corridors are located in our overall kind of QIA. For anyone who's interested in the large grants program, so that's grants that are above 250 and under 2.5 million, they don't have to be on the corridors, they just have to be on the QIA. Next. Oh, go back. Thank you. So again, a little bit about the small grants track and the large grants track. A lot of people get really interested in the large grants track because they hear more money, which, I think is very legitimate, but a couple of things that just want to point out between the two. So yes, the small grants track is less money in that the maximum we can give out to any one project is $250,000. We do have a competitive selection process. So obviously the more shovel ready you are, the more you can show us that you've done sufficient project planning to ensure that your project is going to successfully get completed. You'll get selected, and then we expect a 2-year turnaround. So we move a little bit more quickly, and we expect our grantees to as well. For the large grants track, it's a little slower because every single project that applies for the large grants has to go through city council approval. There's also an RDA process. So all of that takes, more months to get done. And then the one point to keep in mind is the large grants track requires their grantees to have certain criteria for MWBE, for prevailing wage, for local residency, that the small grants track does not. And oftentimes those requirements will increase the cost of their project as well. So, for anyone who is interested in the large grants track, just keep that in mind and make sure that your project budget incorporates any additional costs there. In terms of types of projects, we've got expansions and renovations, new locations, and brand new construction from the ground up. So those are all eligible. Next. And then what can we pay for? So we can, obviously renovations, improvements are eligible. Building acquisition, demolition, and remediation is also eligible as long as it is part of a larger project that has a final use designated. Security measures. So if there is a business that's looking to renovate and they want to add security in, for their property, that is something that we're always interested in supporting. Roofing, facade, mechanical, so that's HVAC, electrical, plumbing. We will cover pre-development costs, so architectural, engineering fees, and yeah, the mechanicals are in there as well. What won't get covered is if it is a very small project. So for example, someone that just wants to repaint the interior of their space, or they just want to do a couple of roof patches. We want something to be substantial enough that as a neighborhood resident, if they're coming by, they're really going to notice and say, oh, wow, this business is really investing in and getting a facelift, or, there's a new business coming in. Residential work is not covered. If a business or a property is already in court with building department because of building code violations, we can't cover that. And then general operating expenses. So, we've had people ask about purchasing inventory or hiring expenses, even something like buying their POS system. Those are all things that won't be covered by the NOF program. Next. I think we talked about this. We talked about the TA program. Two other things I didn't really mention previously is we do also have a concierge support side of the program, which means that whenever our grantee is going through some sort of city application process, if they let us know, we will coordinate with our colleagues in other departments to flag that this is a city funded project and request that as much as possible, like it expedited. So, something as simple as a building permit or inspections, if we know that an application is in play, we'll let our colleagues in zoning and buildings know to flag it as a city funded project and make sure that, it doesn't get delayed for some, odd reason. Also, our colleagues know that if there is some sort of delay and they think that we on the NOF team can help resolve or expedite it, they're always welcome to call us and we can coordinate with the communication with the grantees. And then finally, with business marketing, we do ribbon cuttings, grand openings, social media kind of posts to recognize all of our grantees. So that's just kind of an additional benefit for a lot of these businesses to get that recognition from the city of Chicago. Next. In terms of how to apply, so the website is really easy. It's just chicago.gov/NOF. If you go there right now, under the applicant support, there are pre-recorded information sessions that go through not only this information, but some additional details. So anyone is able to look at the pre-recorded sessions. They can also, work with our interactive map and start the application. If anyone does need to reach out to us, our contact information is there, as is our contracted program administrator, Summer Corps. And then we've got 2 email addresses for any additional questions for small grants. It's nof@cityofchicago.org. And then if anyone is interested in the large grant track, what they should do is they need to email nof-large@cityofchicago.org just to start talking with the large grants team about the process and how to get started. I think that's it on my end. Questions, let me know, but otherwise, again, a reminder that we are going to close the application round on April 9th, and we will reopen it again in the 3rd quarter.
Thank you, Sophia. Do we have any questions for Sophia at the moment?
This is Craig. I'm having trouble with my raise my hand function. Sorry.
No worries.
Sophia, in the past, there was some issues about parking lots. At least that as it related to SPIF. Do you have the same preclusions for that? In other words, like a guy's got an existing business and adjacent to him, he owns an empty lot. He wants to make it a parking lot because he's losing customers because of the parking meters, but we've said no to him in the past. Is that still the case here?
It depends. So what we're gonna say no to is if someone's gonna use NOF to acquire city lot. And that's because of two things. One is it kind of seems odd that we would use city funding to purchase a lot from the city. So I think just as a policy wise, I don't know that that's necessarily the best use for, the program funds. And then secondly, kind of from a pragmatic perspective, the two programs just have such differing timelines that it really is hard to meet the 2-year timeline that the NOF program has if you haven't already acquired or is close to completing the transaction to acquire the city lot. So that is different.
Okay, he owns a lot in this case. Let me just ask a follow-up question too, real quickly. You mentioned mixed-use buildings like residential and commercial. How do you determine what's eligible and what's not? I know that in the past we considered roofs eligible, even though if there were residential components to the building and the first floor was commercial. What else? How else can you expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So anything that covers both the residential and the commercial portion. So let's say the roof. What we'll do is we'll take the cost of that activity and then we'll cover a portion of it based on the percentage of square foot, for example. So if let's say it was a 2-floor commercial, first floor and residential upstairs, and it's a 50-50 split, then we'll take a look at the roof and say if it's $100,000, we'll say, okay, 50% of it is eligible for the city, for the city grant, because the other 50 we'll consider as part of the residential side. And so anything that is shared, anything that is not shared, we'll just exclude from the NOF project costs when we determine the grant value. So let's say, for example, it's windows and someone wants to do all the windows on the first floor, first and second floor, because it makes sense to have one contractor come in and do it all at once and have it look nice and neat. Great. If there's 2 windows on the first floor and 2 windows on the second floor, what we'll do is we'll exclude the cost of the windows on the second floor and just use the cost of the first floor commercial space in calculating our grant funding.
Got it. Would you guys do, will Summer Corps, would somebody come out and do a pre-estimate, so to speak, to tell them what's eligible, what percentage, at least not dollar amount, but what percentage would be covered? Would answer their application?
We haven't in the past, although if the applicant has plans and can kind of show us in design when they submit the application, we can actually follow up with them and kind of go through a general calculation for them. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times, it's just as simple as if it's a window contractor, we look at the bid and, we'll see, okay, these windows cost this much, these windows cost this much. And we don't even need to go out to look at the percentage.
Okay, great. Got it. Thank you.
Sophia, will you be able to stick around through the duration of the meeting? Should we continue taking questions now, or could we wait until after Nora presents and then you two can take them?
You know what? I'll stick around because I actually think that's a great suggestion, Sonia, with SPIF and NOF kind of helping figure out what program might work better for a particular applicant. So yeah, I'll stick around. Happy to.
Yeah, good, because I will say we have a couple hands raised, so we want to make sure that we get around to Randall and Jonathan.
Right. So we'll circle back to Randall and Jonathan just after the SPIF portion, if that's okay, gents. Thank you. All right. So Miss Nora, if you're ready.
Great. Thank you. And hello, everybody. My name is Nora Curry. I'm the director of the SPIF program here at DPD, and I work closely with all of you. I'm glad to be with you this morning. I thought I'd start out. The SPIF program stands for Small Business Improvement Fund, and we provide non-competitive grants to small businesses and property owners to make permanent building improvements. So this may sound familiar. It might sound kind of like what Sophia just described, right? So let me start by talking about ways in which we're somewhat different from the NOF program. We're different in the areas that we serve. So we are funded, the SPIF program is funded by the local tax increment financing revenues. We are only in tax increment financing, or TIF districts. It's available in 84 SPIF districts that are approved for funding by City Council. It's in neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides of Chicago, all over the city. And we are funded in monthly increments, 30-day periods. Each month, 5 or 6 SPIF districts with available funds are open for applications and over 30-day periods. Next slide. We also differ by who we serve. Properties must be located in a TIF district where SPIF funds are available while the SPIF is open for applications. We serve pretty much the same folks. We'll serve landlords. They can be commercial, but they can also be industrial, which is different from NOF. We can work with business owners, commercial or industrial, who own or lease their place of business. So tenants can apply. Also startup businesses, either businesses that are already in the property or businesses that are coming into the property. Startup businesses. We do have eligibility limits, which is different from the NOF program. You, as a non-competitive grant, you do have to qualify for it based on the size of your business. Businesses must be smaller than if you either qualify by their sales. If you're a business owner, if you're a property owner, you qualify by your net worth. So if you're a small business owner, you need to have an average net sales of gross sales of under $9 million per year. If you're a landlord, you have to have a net worth of less than $9 million with a liquid net assets of $500,000 per individual owner. If it's an industrial business, you have to have under 200 full-time employees. Next one. How much can you receive? What's the maximum grant amount? For single tenant buildings, $150,000 is the maximum grant amount. For a commercial project, a little bit less than the NOF. If it's a multi-tenant, that property can get up to $250,000, which is with a maximum of per tenant of $75,000. For industrial properties, we can go up to $250,000. Grants can be paid either by reimbursement after the work has been done, or we just with our new ordinance, we are allowing escrow drawdowns. You can start an escrow account and you can put your money in, you'll put our money in, and you can draw down from that as the work is being done. Next slide. Okay, so how much money can you receive? This differs a little bit from NOF as well. We do this on a tiered basis. It depends on the kind of project you're doing and on the size of your business. If you are an industrial project, you can receive up to 50% of your eligible costs. That is for every industrial project. If you are a commercial business, the smaller your business, the more you are eligible to receive. The smallest businesses, those who make $3 million or less per year, are eligible for 90% of their project costs to be reimbursed. That means for you, so I'll reiterate, you put in 10% of the eligible costs of the project, the city will put in 90% of the costs of the project for the smallest business. If you make $30 to $60 million, we will put in 60% of the eligible costs. 6 to 9, we will put in 30% of the project costs. So it varies by the size of your business. Next slide. Sonia?
Yep, sorry, Nora, it's like stuck.
Oh.
There we go. Was that it?
Thank you. Yep.
There we go.
Okay, so for example, here's Grace, and say she is a retailer. She submits an application for a SPIF grant in an open district. She's got total eligible project costs of $100,000. She's going to put in a new storefront and replace her roof. She's she has a retail shop. She's a tenant. She's been in business for 5 years, and over the last 3 years, her gross annual sales average 1.5 million. Could the person typing mute there? Thank you. So yeah, she's been in business for years. Her annual gross sales average $1.5 million. So her breakdown of those eligible costs would be her total eligible sales are her total eligible project costs are $100,000. Her gross sales are under 3 million, so she qualifies for that 90% SPIF grant, which means the city's responsibility for her project is 90% or $90,000, and her responsibility is 10% or $10,000. So pretty good deal for Grace there. Next slide. Okay, so what does this mean for your neighborhood? This map is the New City neighborhood, and in there we've got 3 TIFs, and all 3 of them have SPIF funds available, and we have rollout plans in each of those SPIF rollouts. The way that SPIF works is we identify funding in each of the TIFs where we're going to have SPIF, and we have scheduled for, City Council just approved funding over the next 3 years for the SPIF program. City Council approved $60 million over the next 3 years for the SPIF program. And in 2021 alone, we will be rolling out $50 million in 70 SPIFs. We had additional money balances available. So in this year, we'll be rolling out money in 3 SPIFs. 47th Ashland will be first in August. We will have almost $750,000 available. As you know, there is an Invest Southwest corridor there, and you can see that outlined within the 47th Ashland TIF. And then that'll be followed with 47th Halsted and the Starkyard Southeast Quadrant. Both of those will be open in October. What's important to know about the 47th Ashland SPIF is that with the Invest Southwest corridor, we will be, any properties that are located within the Invest Southwest corridor will receive preference if there's a lottery in that area. As I said, this is a non-competitive grant. Anybody who is eligible for the grant, if there is enough funding, will receive it if you qualify and follow all of the requirements for the SPIF. But if we do have a lottery, meaning we have more applications than we have funding for, we have a lottery, and we review the applications in that order, create a waiting list for those we don't have enough funding for. We will give preference to those folks in the Invest Southwest corridor. Okay, next slide. Okay, we know where you are, but and when those SPIFs are going to be open, but we do have a website, the chicago.gov/SPIF. It has a lot of information on it. One of those is the rollout calendar. So if you need to check it, there it is. Next slide. You can also check the rollout calendar here. If you ever forget, you've got Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council right here on the call. You will never forget who your delegate agency is, but you can check things on our website as well. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about what kind of businesses are eligible for SPIF. We generally talked about commercial, industrial, but there are a few business types within that are not eligible. It's actually easier to talk about who's not eligible and who is, because almost every kind of business is. But generally, residential properties are not eligible for SPIF, including home-based businesses. Chain and franchise businesses not eligible for SPIF. Bars, nightclubs, liquor stores, tobacco stores, hotels and motels, payday loans, check cashing places, adult uses, residential storage warehouses. Next, please. And then what can you do with the money? Permanent improvements to existing buildings are eligible costs. So the same kind of things that Sophia talked about with NOF, facade improvements, storefront replacements, permanent interior, roof repair, tuck pointing, signs and awnings, architectural fees and construction management are also permitted. Next. And what are not eligible? New construction, standalone repairs, minor repairs like painting, as Sophia mentioned, equipment, anything that you can take and walk away with, we can't pay for. Landscaping, parking lot repairs, things like that. And then any internal work on residential units. And then things above the first floor, generally speaking, like internal repairs to third floor offices, probably not going to get those paid for. Next. One thing I definitely want to note is that design excellence is a very important part of the program. DPD has just updated our neighborhood design guidelines. All commercial projects receiving more than $25,000 in the grant must spend at least 10% of their grant on exterior improvements. We do have a list of architects and construction managers that we provide to you that's pre-approved by the NOF program, actually. As I said, we will pay for that through the SPIF program. And we very much encourage you to make use of those professionals, and we will be working with you to make sure that that your designs are excellent, are using materials that are of good quality, and are providing value to your community. Better design makes for better value for your business as well. Okay, next please. Okay, just to show you a sample of what SPIF is able to do, this is an ice cream shop in the Bridgeport neighborhood. This is Ice Honey. I think they're opening next month. They've totally replaced their storefront and did a lot of internal improvements. They completely refreshed their storefront, and you can see the inside in the next slide. Absolutely transformed the building inside. So this was you can see for $136,000, $100,000 grant, totally unrecognizable. Next. And just to give you an idea, it's pretty sure the original application, the first application is very simple. It's a 3-pager, and then you keep then we'll come back to you and ask you for additional things: business licenses, clear debt, property ownership, tax returns, all those things to prove up that you're eligible for the program. Next slide. And the total process takes about 18 months. That's including your 10 months that you have to complete the construction part. But the SPIF program will work about as quickly as you will. So we respond to your process as much as you respond to ours. If you need to move fast, we'll move fast with you. Next one. And then we'll take questions if you want to move on. These are a couple more of the projects we've recently completed in I'm spacing the neighborhood onto Vision Street and along Milwaukee Avenue. And then you can go to the next one, which has our contact information. Then maybe we want to take questions.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take questions on NOF and SPIF now before we go on to the next section.
Yes, definitely. So Randall, would you like to kick us off with your question?
Yeah. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, finances are pretty much the backbone of everything that we're thinking about doing here. And I've gotten kind of conflicting answers on a certain part of those. I spent years building, I guess, certain assets to actually go into my retail location that I'm thinking of. As far as the percentage that I would need to kick in, the financial percentage I would need to kick in, would the value of those assets be considered with that financial obligation that I need to fulfill? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at answering that. So not knowing exactly what those assets are and how far back you invested in them and acquired them, it's really hard to say. For the NOF program, we will cover pre-development / design costs up to 6 months from the time that you submit your application. So that is something that will be considered. Also, if you're acquiring the property, the amount that you are paying for the property can also count into the percentage that you need to meet. For NOF, instead of having the tiered process that SPIF has, we usually we start with a flat 50% of total eligible project costs. And then depending on whether you're interested in getting the local hiring bonus, or if you meet the qualifications for the local residency bonus, it can go up to 75% or 100% to a maximum of $250.
Okay.
As far as SPIF is concerned, we can't reimburse for anything prior to us issuing the commitment letter. So any work done before the city has issued that letter, we cannot reimburse for.
Okie dokie.
That answer your question, Randall? Somewhat?
Somewhat.
Was that the question?
I'm sorry?
Was that the question or was that?
No, I
You
don't
can-
think it was it. I'm not saying that if it exactly answered it or not. And maybe it's something that I'll have to continue addressing, probably a little more pinpointed
Okay,
aspect of it.
okay.
Yeah, we can. certainly touch
I'll
on
just say,
that
I
offline.
dropped my personal email address in the chat. So if you want to have a sidebar conversation, talk specifically about your situation, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and mine is up on the screen as well.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great, thanks, guys. Next up, we have Jonathan.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Hello.
I think this is probably just a question for NOF. Our property is commercially zoned. It's along the Ashland corridor, but it falls just on the other side of the TIF border, which to me means we're not eligible for SPIF, and we're not eligible for the small NOF. So for large NOF, can you talk a little bit more about our projects actually being funded? And when you talk about a longer timeline, are we talking 6 months, 3 years? Like what, I guess, are projects actually being considered for a large NOF?
Yeah, great question. So the short answer is yes, they are considering projects for large NOF. In terms of how long it takes, it really is difficult for me to say because I'm not in that team, so I can't really track the progress of when the conversation about it ends and when an application is formally submitted and so on and so forth. I will tell you that in general, it kind of goes through what a general TIF funded project will go through from a review and approval standpoint. So it's a multi-month process. And the fact that they have to create a unique RDA for each one of the projects also adds time to it.
Can we apply for the large NOF for less than $250,000?
No.
Okay. All right.
Good question. No.
And I'm assuming the TIF lines will not be withdrawn in any time soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So are you saying that you're on the corridor, the Invest Southwest corridor, or you're just off of it?
So the commercial property, there's a commercial bump out. So if you look at 45th and 46th, there's a bump out to the west of Ashland on 46 for a commercial property there. But there is not on 45th. And so our commercial properties on 45th and Marshfield, our back door is the alley, which is the borderline. So it's just, whenever they were drawn, that property wasn't considered and was drawn out of it. So,
Yeah, it's like literally
I'm trying
just
to look at my map. Okay. Well,
I can
you know what?
show you
If you
guys a
ever want to
credit
reach out to me and give me an exact address, I'm happy to look at it and give you, confirmation again. Yeah.
sure, I've talked to a few people and I think we're
It's
not.
a solid
Yeah.
no. You've gotten it more than once. Okay.
I just want to make sure for large NOF, like if we apply for it, it will actually be considered and like what timeline we're looking at. Will it start adding to costs? Like, are we taking on bigger loans to purchase the building too? Because we need to sort of, so it gets a little bit more complicated, I know, with large NOF.
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fabi, do you have a question?
Hello, yes, it's actually both for NOF and SPIF. So if a property has a large number of violations, we're talking about large, like probably 100 violations, and the owners wants to let it go, but there's a potential new buyer who wants to move their business to that location, can either the NOF or the SPIF, can they be eligible for either one?
Huh.
And if they want to gut it and revamp it and make it a whole new building and obviously move their business there, would they be able to qualify for either?
So
don't
for this,
know.
for NOF, I think our key really is, are they currently in court or have they already had a judgment against them? If the answer to that is yes, they have to get it resolved first
Mm-hmm.
before they, I mean, you know, they can always apply, but what
Yeah.
happens is if they get up to the top of the kind of selection list, one of the stakeholders that does help us review our applicants is the Department of Buildings, BACP, Finance, and they'll do a search on that address. And if we're alerted that there are current judgments against that building for building code violation,
Okay.
they come off the list. Yeah, I will say that I think we had one building, don't quote me on this, but in the past we had one building that was on the demo list. Like, it was bad enough that I think it was going through court to get demolished, and the property owner was able to get that resolved and then come back and apply, and it was a brand new business. And his proposal clearly showed that he'd done enough of the planning to know exactly how much money it was going to be to basically, you know, bring in a new business, and was able to get selected.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the building is still savable, but the owner doesn't want to put any more money in. I believe there was a court order, but he might have probably fixed that issue. But the potential new buyer wants to make sure that they qualify for such program, because they're going to obviously invest so much money to buy it, to renovate it, and obviously to bring their business back. So just thought I asked that question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bobby. Do we have any other questions for Sophia or Nora?
I would like to say, since Fabi is here, or whether or not she was here, that anybody with questions about either of these programs definitely should go to Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council for anything. They're definitely experts in both of them, and can help them with any small or large question about the programs, and help them find contractors or bids or anything, resolve any questions, anything they might be even worried about talking to the city about. They can help them before they come to us as well. So they're a great resource, as I think everybody on this call already knows, but they also have expertise in this particular issue. So everybody should definitely go to them for this and spread the word.
Yeah.
Just put a question into the chat as well. Can you be eligible for both large NOF and SPIF?
Well, large is a different thing. I mean, basically, if you're that, you can, yes. And there definitely have been large projects that apply for SPIF. And we have had projects that are over $1 million and still that are spending $1 million or more and also get SPIF funding. There does tend to be, we do tend though to do smaller projects. And our niche is sort of those, our average grant is like $61,000 and our average project is $130 or so. Just because that seems to be who is attracted to our program. But I think the question is more, can you apply to NOF and SPIF at the same time? Can you use both programs at the same time? You can apply for both programs at the same time. However, you need to decide. You will be asked to decide which program you're going to use. So if you're in the NOF program and you're applying for SPIF and you get to a decision point, you know, we don't want you to have to decide, I'm going to apply for NOF, therefore I can't apply to SPIF. But if you get to the point where one or the other, you're getting a commitment letter from one or the other, you have to pull your application from the other program because you can't get both at the same time for the same project.
Yeah, if I can add, Craig, that's a really good question. I think there's also just a general question of like, does that make sense, or is there just an unnecessary administrative burden on the applicant when you go through both programs? So if there is a situation where you think both are going to be necessary, I would reach out to the large grant large NOF grant team first and just say, hey, you know, here's the deal, and this is why we think it makes sense to go through both, you know, TIF, SPIF, and the large NOF, because ultimately, if it's the same project, you know, and you're looking for the funds at both times, you're just looking at two different pots of money. And so if there's a way where the needs are covered in one pot, it might make a little bit more sense just to go through one program instead of two. But there could be, you know, other extenuating circumstances. There's not enough TIF funds to cover the whole thing, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know. But especially for a large NOF, you know, a TIF and a large NOF both need RDA. They both need city council you know, approval. So it really has to be kind of lock and step throughout the process, because everyone's going to be asking, why are you going through both versus just one? And if I can go back to the other question about parking, we have done parking lots before, and we actually have some projects in the pipeline right now that are doing parking lots. The two that I know currently are in our pipeline are actually projects where they're doing a whole facade and they're doing a refinishing of the parking lot. That's kind of in front of their business area. So parking lot work in general is permitted. Same thing with building a new parking lot on an adjacent lot, as long as it goes through city, you know, zoning review and the designs are approved. There's nothing that specifically excludes that from the NOF program.
Yeah, and Sophia, that one gets a little complicated too, because he'd want driveway from the street, and that would mean removing some of the parking meters, and that gets complicated.
Yeah,
but it's worth knowing that it's a possibility. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I think if there are any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can certainly, I know Sophia and Nora have both provided their email addresses, but you can also email me or Sonia and we can get you connected. I just want to make sure we still have quite a few items on the agenda. I want to make sure we have enough time, but thank you both, Nora and
Yes,
Sophia,
thank
for
you,
joining
Nora.
us.
Thank you, Sophia. This was great.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, so moving right along. So as most of you might know, March 30th is the deadline for the RFP proposals for our 47th and Justine RFP site. So we just wanted to provide sort of a general overview of what that process will look like in the next couple of months. So after we receive the proposals, March 30th, we'll begin a review process where basically we'll just condense and summarize each proposal submission, so it's more consumable for discussion. So after we've done that, we'll bring those summaries to this meeting, to the roundtable, to discuss and review. And then we'll actually be working with the developers to set up public meetings. Actually, they'll probably be more like larger roundtable type meetings, but they'll take place in the evening. And we'll set up these meetings where they'll be presenting their proposals via a video submission, and they'll be taking questions from the community. Once we've done that, we will release a survey for anyone in the community to complete, just providing their feedback on, you know, each of the various proposals and what their thoughts are on each. And then all of that information, all of that feedback will be compiled and shared with the RFP evaluation committee. And once we've taken time to vet and review each proposal very thoroughly, a proposal will be selected based on evaluation criteria that were laid out in the RFP already, but then also based on your feedback from the community. Nolan, would you like to?
Sure, but before we move on, I see Angie has her hand raised. Angie?
Oh.
Yeah, I'd just like to, first of all, thank you for the, for presenting the process kind of from here on out. And I'm wondering how you're going to work together with the 20th Ward to make sure that these processes kind of sync and satisfy what the 20th Ward is looking at, for the sake of any decisions needed by Alderwoman Taylor.
Yeah, so I think we definitely need to coordinate with Alderwoman Taylor's office. We did include in the RFP those criteria that the 20th Ward Community Planning Committee has kind of articulated. So developers, people who are proposing projects for this site should already be aware of that process. And I think we just need to really understand at what point, is it after, a proposal is selected? Is that the point at which they should go through that planning process with the 20th Ward, or do we need to do that before? I think we just need to understand, kind of talk with her office and understand when the right time to plug in is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
And there's a question related to that in the chat right now.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. When should the residents of 47th and Justine expect to receive information about this project sent by mail? It's just been word of mouth. We haven't received anything official by mail. Nolan, would you like to help with that?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if this is relating back to sort of, I know there was Alderwoman Taylor's ward night meeting last night, and I know there was talk about, when a developer has a proposal for a property, they need to notify, a certain radius around that property, or whether there's TIF funds, involved. We're not at that point yet. There isn't, we haven't even received any proposals yet. So I think in my mind, and again, we'll certainly circle back with Alderwoman Taylor's office to discuss, but in my mind, the appropriate time would be once there is a proposal that we're actually entertaining and looking at. That would be the point at which they would need to go through that process.
Thank you, Nolan. Okay, let's move along to the next topic.
So, and I know we're getting kind of short on time here, but if folks can go a little bit longer, I know we have someone from the mayor's office on too who wants to make an announcement at the end, but I wanted us to just kind of tee this conversation up. And if we don't finish it today, that's okay. But I think, we've been meeting for about a year now. And so I think this is probably a good time just to pause and kind of reevaluate, the structure of the roundtable, if this makes sense. Some of the things that have come up that have been discussed are, ideas around including an educational or informational component. We certainly did that today. This was kind of an information heavy meeting, but going forward, does it make sense to have those kind of those opportunities to share information and educate? I know we have Deanne Bowe from Main Street America on the call, and I certainly don't want to put her on the spot, but I know they have some educational opportunities too that we need to figure out how to sort of plug in. That may be a separate track from this roundtable, but I want to make sure that that's kind of part of the discussion. And then there have been ideas of, should these be live streamed on YouTube or on, Alderman's Facebook pages during the meeting? I think, from DPD's perspective, I think we're totally open to that. I think we want to make sure that we're being open and transparent in these meetings and that folks have an opportunity, if not to participate directly, at least to listen in and submit comments or questions afterward. But we also want to be respectful of all of you and make sure that folks feel comfortable, that they can still be kind of open and honest and share in that format if it is being live streamed. So I wanted to kind of throw that out. And then the other thing that's come up is just timing. And so, we've been meeting, the third Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock in the morning. I know that works for a lot of organizational folks or people like us who it's our job to do this, but I know for a lot of people who are running a business or working a day job that, 11 o'clock on a Thursday may not be the best time. So I just wanted to reopen that conversation as well. And if folks are open to us, moving this to an evening, late afternoon, early evening, maybe 6 o'clock, 6 to 7, I think we just want to, consider that. So that's all I have to say. I want to open it up to members of the roundtable for their thoughts, and certainly open it up to Deanne if she wants to jump in. I see you waiting patiently.
So you are putting me on the spot. Well, I will jump in really quickly, Nolan. I would recommend that the trainings be offered in the evening or on a weekend, at least for the Main Street trainings, to ensure that we're able to reach a wide range of individuals. I have also heard from other communities that some of the businesses may actually require these trainings be hosted early in the morning. So I'm willing to do that as well to accommodate, but you let me know from a community's perspective of what will work best. And I'm going to mute myself because now my dogs are barking. I'm sorry.
And I think too, if those trainings are sort of on a separate track, but I think, we also want to talk about how, what are those touch points where, your shop comes back to these roundtables, even if it's just to get information out about when, those dates and times. But certainly we want to make sure that those are coordinated.
Absolutely, I agree. I don't know if the roundtables are just the best way to, like you said, market that these workshops will be available. So I will take the direction of the community because I want to make certain that we are aligning with what they would like to do and the best platform for them.
Absolutely. And so there are a few comments in the chat. Araceli said she appreciated Alderwoman Taylor's live stream yesterday and would also strongly prefer moving the roundtable to an evening schedule. I think we're open to both of those. Angie agrees that she'd like to see this as accessible as possible. And then let's see, resident of 47th and Justine Street did not receive information about this future project. Right, so Maria, we may have to circle back with you on that directly. The RFP process, the city doesn't generally notify when we RFP a property, but I think, through the 20th Ward office and the process that Alderwoman Taylor has put together, I think, once proposals are received, we would certainly want to make sure that we're complying with those requirements, or that the developer of the proposal is complying with those requirements. But I'll circle back with you directly on that question.
Do we have any other questions at the, let's see here, Fernando. This is from Ali and Fernando from our Artists in Residence program. So Fernando and I are definitely able to attend and participate in meetings in the evening to encourage more participation from community members. Thank you, Ali. So it sounds like there's a general interest in just moving this meeting to evenings. Does 6 p.m. work for folks? Same day, third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m.?
I'm seeing some head nods.
Yeah.
So I think for now, maybe we'll circle back with just an email confirmation to everyone. I know, not everyone who regularly attends these is on today, so we may send something out, but it sounds like the third Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock probably works for most people. And it also sounds like most folks are comfortable with the idea of us kind of broadening the reach by having this live stream on our YouTube channel, and certainly giving the aldermen an opportunity to post it on their Facebooks as well. So that's good. So before we wrap up, unless there's any other comments or questions, I do want to turn it over to Travis Moore-Murray from the mayor's office. He's got some information that he wanted to get out at this meeting, and also has a flyer that will circulate after the meeting as well. Travis?
Hi, everybody. So just want to give some folks some COVID vaccination updates that are going on in your area. So Back of the Yards is one of the 15 communities that have been identified as the hardest hit by COVID. And so Protect Chicago Plus is trying to, reduce some of those barriers for vaccine by providing 10% of the area's population in doses. So a temporary clinic is set up within this area for about somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks. The first doses will be administered in weeks 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, and then the following weeks would allow folks to return for the second dose. So Back of the Yards Clinic will be open starting yesterday, and it'll be open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next 6 weeks. The vaccine is Pfizer, and it's for individuals who are 18 and older. And is there anything? Oh yeah, only the people who live in the identified area are eligible to receive the vaccine. In the flyer that'll be sent out to folks, there will be a map that kind of covers all of that. And so that's it for me. Just wanted to give that quick update for folks to look out for.
Great. Thank you so much, Travis.
Of course.
So I think we're ready to wrap up if no one has any more questions at the moment. Oh, we have a comment from Joan real quick. Let's see. The 20th Ward office has a meeting with Back of the Yards Invest Southwest team at the close of this week. We should be able to figure out the timeline for engaging our process for the development ideas that come from the RFP. Thank you, Joan.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Yep.
So great. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I know this was
Yes.
a really kind of content heavy, informational roundtable. Rest assured, when you guys come back in April in the evening, we'll have a lot more to discuss because then we'll have those proposals back for the RFP. So we'll have a lot to talk about then.
Absolutely.
I don't know if anyone else has anything going once.
Thank you everyone so much. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
Take care.